Well, good morning, everyone. It's really good to be here. As you may hear, I'm quite loud, but it's not because I'm cross. It's just I'm excited. I really get excited to share my testimony for one reason, is you can trust God in your darkest moment. You can. And so, Greg, thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to come and share here at New Day. I really do appreciate it. I gave my life to the Lord at the age of 16. And I was on fire for Jesus. I met my wife at a youth camp, and we were flat out in the church, and then I went into banking. Now, banking is not from the devil, I promise you, it's not. And I'd been in banking a few years when my boss, who then went and started a corporate bank, phoned me one day and said, Brad, I want you to come and help me start this corporate bank. Now, if you're in banking, you want to go to corporate banking, because that's where the stuff happens. And we were highly successful. Month one, we were profitable, unheard of in the banking industry. And over time, it became apparent I had a gift in finance. And my career just went into the stratosphere. And I was working really hard, 6 days a week, 18 hours a day. Then, of course, you got to rest on Sunday. So I started resting at home rather than going to church. And I sent my wife and my kids to church. At the age of 32, I had the statistically perfect life. Married to a wonderful wife, a luxurious home, 2 cars, 2 children, 1.5 dogs, and a job that sucked the life out of me. Now, apparently, that's statistically perfect life in South Africa. What had happened in the process is my career became my God. I literally turned away from God. My wife would go to church and say, Brad, why don't you come this morning? Say, no, babe, I've got to rest, Monday, back on the hamster wheel. I've got to make this thing happen. Many years later, I'd asked my wife, I said, babe, remember, when you were going to church, were you praying for me? She said, every single Sunday. I said, what were you praying? She said, I prayed this. I prayed that one day the corporate world would give me my husband back. But now you've got to be careful when your wife prays that, because some stuff can happen. We get watershed moments in our life. And our watershed moment was going to come when I was 32 years old. I was down in Durban one day, and this chap came up to me. He said, you Brad Sadler? No, I'm a friendly guy. Oh, I said, yes, I am. How do you do? He said, I'm Major so-and-so from the commercial crime unit. I'm here to arrest you. I said, for what? He said, for fraud. I said, how much? He said, 70 million. Can we talk somewhere? I said, please. We went to this office. He showed me a search warrant. He said, look, we're going to go to your house and your office, take 1 or 2 things away. Then you go to the court and get bail. Would you like to phone your wife? I said, please. I phoned my wife. I said, babes, hi, it's me. A little challenge here in Durban. I got arrested. You got what? Wait till I get my hands on you. No, she didn't say that. Didn't speak like it either. She said, Brad, what's going on? I said, I don't know. They got the wrong guy. And so they did. They went to my house. They took a whole Pantechnic and full of stuff away. Went down to the courts. Courts were closed. They had to call a magistrate back to hear my bail application. My attorney arrived. He said to me, Brad, what's going on? I said, I don't know. They got the wrong guy. And so we went into the courtroom. The prosecutor got up. He said, Your Honor, can you deny Mr. Sadler bail? So he said, why? He said, well, it's a big case. 70 million. We think it's going to go to 100. And these guys run away. These executives, they make these decisions, cause nonsense. Then when things go pear-shaped, they run away overseas. Please don't give him bail. My attorney looked at me and said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not like it. So he said, tell the judge. And so I got up into the witness box. My attorney said, Mr. Sadler, are you going to run away? I said, no. He said, good. And I sat down. Magistrate looked at me and said, Mr. Sadler, this is a big decision. In fact, precedent in future cases will be set depending on the decision that I make. So I need to think about it. I'm going to sleep on it tonight, and I'll give you my answer in the morning, so you spend the night in the cells. Well, that's fair. My attorney handed me his phone. He said, phone your wife. So I phoned my wife. I said, babes, hi, it's me. A little challenge down here at court. I've got to spend the night in the cells. Oh, those cells. I know what happens in those cells. I said, hey, I'll get my own cell. Have my own blanket, my own sheet, my own pillow. They lock me up, 24-hour security. Nothing will happen to me. Oh, those cells. I said, you watch too much TV. Nothing will happen to me. And so they did. They put me in a cell. 5 guys in the cell, no bed. We slept on the floor with a stinky old blanket full of holes. 11 o'clock that night, the warders came and they opened the cell door and they threw a guy in. No, I mean, they threw him in. They had him by the belt and the jacket and the collar, and they threw him into the cell. This guy had been smoking that famous Durban stuff because he ran around the cell the whole night roaring like a lion. We're like, what is wrong with this guy? We tried to sleep, but he found a chicken bone in the corner of the cell, and every time we closed our eyes, he'd try and stab us with a chicken bone. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? We didn't get sleep. 5:30, they come to wake us up. We're already awake. The Correctional Services in South Africa is a very efficient, compassionate organization. They took us through for breakfast, and there was juice and bacon and egg and coffee. No, I'm joking, there was nothing. Go to court. Eventually, it was my turn to come before the magistrate. And I stood up and he said, Mr. Sadler, I've thought long and hard. I'm not giving you bail. You need to await trial in Westville Prison. So I turned to my attorney. I said, fine, get me a date next week. Let's get this thing sorted out. See, my strategic brain's still working. My attorney turned to me and said, Brad, you don't understand. You might get a date in 4 years' time. So I said, hypothetically, I spent 4 years in prison awaiting a trial date. He said, yes. I said, then I go to trial. By some miraculous chance, they find me guilty. Give me 5 years, minus the 4 I've been there already. I might spend another 1. He said, no, you'll do another 5. I said, but get me bail. And so they took me down into this truck, take me to Westville Prison. As I said, they're an efficient organization. Truck for 10 men, 40 of us inside. Off we go. Westville Prison. For the next 2 weeks, we tried to get bail. In the meantime, my wife came and saw me. I'll never forget the first time she sat opposite me. There was through this armored glass. She sat down. As I sat down, I just said to her, babe, I'm so sorry. I think I've destroyed our lives. Your life, my life. My 2 girls at that stage were 6 years and 2 years old. I said, I think I've destroyed our lives. I'll understand if you want to, what's the name? She said, what? I said, if you want to, what's it? She said, what? I said, the what's it? If you want to. She said, you mean divorce? I said, yes, I'll understand. She says, listen to me very carefully. I'm so mad with you right now, I can eat live snakes. But we're not getting divorced. The only way through this is together. You know, she's quite right. I want to encourage you all this morning. If you're married, when the storms and the darkness come, the only way you're going to get through it is together, not apart. I asked her, I said, babes, remember that day you said to me, no divorce? I said, did you see anything? She said, yes, I saw a weight lift off your shoulders. You suddenly realized that you had somebody else in the world, and we were going to do this together. That is the only way, as married people, that we get through the storms of life. It's together. She said, Brad, do you need anything? And I said, yes, I need my Bible. It's in my study, top shelf, full of dust. Bring it. I need to get my life sorted out with God. She said, and then I said to her, I said, babe, is there anything I can do for you? She said, yes, I need you to stay alive. The reason she said that is when I was released, she wanted to kill me herself. She did. She brought me a Bible, and I'll never forget it. I knelt down on that cold, hard concrete floor of my cell, and I rededicated my life to the Lord. I said, Lord, I'm so sorry. Forgive me that I've run away from you. You know, that I didn't ask God to make this thing disappear. I said, Lord, there's a storm coming for me and my family. And I just want the strength, and I want you right next to me walking us through this, because that's what God does. The storms of life will come. But there's no one better to walk through the storms of life with you and your family than with the Lord at your side. I read the Bible. I devoured the Bible. Not looking for answers, but looking once again to know the God that I used to love. I went to the court for the very last time to apply for bail. The magistrate said to me, Mr. Sadler, don't come back to court. You are never getting bail. And so I went back to the prison that afternoon. There was a warder waiting for me. He said, hey, Sadler, come here. I was like, oh man, now what? He said, I want you to sign this form. I said, I'm not signing anything. That's what got me here in the first place. He said, you will sign this form. I said, what is it? He said, it's your request to go to isolation. I said, what? He said, isolation. I said, what's that? He said, there at the back of the prison, we've got these tiny little cells. They really are small. And we're going to lock you up for 23 hours out of every 24. You can come out in the morning, half an hour for lunch, for breakfast, under armed guard. You can come out at lunchtime for half an hour for some lunch, under armed guard. The rest of the time, you're going to be locked in that cell. I said, why? He said, you know why. You need to arrive alive at your trial. The problem was 2 guys had tried to kill me. As you can see, they weren't very successful, but they had tried to kill me. And so off I went into isolation, and there was a chap at the end. He was also in isolation. I said, hi, my name's Brad Sadler. How are you doing? He said, no, I'm fine. He said, Brad, why are you here? I said, man, I got arrested for fraud. He said, how much? I said, 70 million. He said, where's the cash? I said, there's no cash. I broke the Banks Act. Signed some things I should never have signed. I put the bank at risk. He said, oh, that's a problem. Oh, man. I said, well, why are you here? He said, no, I'm a wholesaler. I said, really? What do you wholesale? He said, Mandrax. I said, you're a drug dealer. He said, no, I'm not. I'm a businessman. I'm not a drug dealer. He said, and anyway, I'm not here for selling drugs. I said, well, why are you here? He said, there was a guy who owed me lots of money. Couldn't pay me. The police have 2 witnesses that saw me shoot him point blank in the head with a 9mm. I'm here for premeditated murder. Oh, I said, great. He was next to me. This guy had a gift. He could look you in the eyes and your life disappeared instantly. He was the scariest guy I've ever seen in my life. So he says to me, Brad, wherever you go, I'm going to go. I said, no, you don't have to do that. Then he gave me that look. I said, it's fine. You can come with me. The reason they put you in isolation is to protect you from the rest of the inmates in the prison. The reason he was in isolation was to protect the rest of the prison from him. He was the violent, scariest guy I've ever met. Now, your family, when you're awaiting trial, your family can bring you food because the prison food's not so hot. And so they bring you food, and then you get the food and you walk back to your cell, and on the way back, the other inmates do pick and no pay. They take stuff from you. So you get all this food by your family. By the time you get back to your cell, you might have a packet of soup left. But this guy would walk with me. Not one thing was ever stolen from me. Because as I walked, he'd be looking around and people would just be turning the other way. They're looking like this. They could not look at him. One guy happened to have glanced in our direction the one day. He grabs him by the throat like this. Then he sticks his finger in his eye. He says, were you looking at us? Guy says, no, no. He says, because if you were, this eye's coming out. Do you know what's incredible? We get into really problematic situations. And we pray, oh Lord, send your fire, send your hedge, send your angels. What if God sends a man that's been arrested for premeditated murder to take care of you? God is God. And He always will be. A little while later, he left to go on trial. And he never came back to the prison. And I wondered what happened. My trial was 4 years long. And in that time, I'd happened to have bumped into his attorney and we'd got talking. He said, oh, Brad, you Brad Sadler, so-and-so spoke about you. And I said, well, how is he? Because he went the one day and he never came back. He said, Brad, it's the strangest trial I've ever had to defend. I said, wow, what happened? He said, well, we got to court that morning. Before we even sat down, prosecutor got up, dropped all charges against him. I said, how come there were 2 witnesses? He said, I know, that was the other funny thing. They both died the night before. Can you believe it? I'm glad I've never met him since. Eventually I got bail. After 6 weeks awaiting trial, my attorney in the state came to an agreement. I got bail. And I was released on a Tuesday. In the meantime, that 6 weeks, my wife had been attending a home group and they were praying. They were praying that God would somehow do a miracle. My attorney had said, Brad, you're not getting bail. You will be in prison until your trial date. But this home group prayed that somehow God would do a miracle. And He would turn the situation around, even despite what the world would say, this is not able to be turned around. They prayed. And so I was released. On the Tuesday, the home group was on the Thursday night. My wife said to me, hey, babes, listen, the home group's been praying for you. I said, oh, no, thank you so much, because she had told me. She said, would you like to come to the home group? I said, I'd love to. And so that Thursday night, I went to the home group. And what I didn't realize, the home group leader had forgot to tell the home group my circumstances. So I got to the home group. Hi, you know, the usual, hi, how are you? One guy comes up to me, he says, Brad, how are you doing? My name's so-and-so. He says, Brad, what do you do for a living? I said, I've just been released from prison. He said, yo, you must be hungry. Come on, let's go and get something. Do you know it was incredible at home group? Not one day of judgment. They just gathered around us and prayed for us. For 4 years. 4 years, every Thursday night they were praying for us. They knew what I'd done, I told them. They said, but we're trusting that God would take this and His glory would come out of it. Do you know that at that stage, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see how God was going to get glorified in this, but I did trust Him. That somehow God would get the glory out of this. And so my trial was 4 years long. At the end of it, I was found guilty of most of the charges. My attorney had said, Brad, prepare yourself. You're probably going to go to prison for the rest of your life. You're probably going to get a 25-year sentence. And we were praying, God, is there a way that you would turn this around? Is there a way that you would turn this around? And so the judge sentenced me, and he said, Mr. Sadler, in 3 days' time, I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do with you. 3 days' time, I went to court. There was a friend of mine, and he had been praying. He said, Brad, he was weeping. He was just weeping. He said, Brad, the Lord's given me a message for you. He's told me to tell you from Proverbs 21. In the Lord's hand, the king's heart is a stream of water. He said, I do believe that God is going to show you mercy through the judge. God is able to do that. And so I went into the court. My attorney was smiling. As I walked in, I said, and now? He said, I'll let the judge tell you. And so I stood there, and the judge said, Mr. Sadler, I'm not going to send you to prison because you didn't steal any money. You put the bank at risk. And so what I'd done all these deals outside of our policies, and although all those loans were repaid, I put the bank at risk to the amount of 70 million rand. Every loan was repaid, but the risk was there. Fraud is I misrepresented to my board. I didn't tell them what I was doing, and I should have told them. And so he said, Mr. Sadler, I'm not going to send you to prison, but I'm going to fine you 500,000 rand. If you can't pay the fine, you don't want to pay the fine, you're going to go to prison for 5 years. On top of that, you're going to serve 1,000 hours community service at a local hospice for terminally ill cancer patients. You're going to be the maintenance man. And if you don't want to do the 1,000 hours or you miss 1 second, you are going to go to prison for another 5 years. I said to my attorney, I love the fine and community service. I don't have 500,000 rand. We had spent everything we had just at the trial. He said to me, Brad, your family have come to speak to me. They don't want you going to prison. And so they've sold some things. They lend you the money so you can pay the fine back. Yeah, in that moment, you realize the importance of family. My family and my wife's family had just gathered around us during this time, knowing full well what I'd done. Families do one of two things when they're in trouble. Either they run for the hills or they gather around you. I want to encourage you this morning to do the latter. To gather around those that are hurting because they need your love and your support. So we paid the fine. I did the 1,000 hours community service. Took me 18 months. 8 hours every Saturday. Did hours during the week. I wanted to repay my debt to society and get on with my life. In the meantime, the state appealed. They said, this is no good. Now, you got to understand, we were flat out in the church. We were serving. We were running a home group. God was good. He had done a miracle. I wasn't in prison. Now the state appealed. So I said, my friends, how's that? I'm now going to go to prison too. They said, Brad, that's impossible. In our law, one crime, one sentence. Not 1 crime, 2 sentences. Did you pay the fine? I said, I paid the fine. They said, did you do the community service? I said, I did all the community service. I said, then you can't be sentenced twice. One morning, 6 o'clock, phone goes, woke me up. It was my mom. She's crying on the phone. I thought someone had died. I said, Mom, what's wrong? She says, front page of the newspaper is your picture. I said, oh, well, the newspapers had written over 100 articles about me. And she said, but it says you're going to prison for 4 years. I said, the newspaper always get everything wrong. Don't worry. I put the phone down, phoned my attorney. I woke him up. I said, but what's going on? He said, I don't know. I'll come back to you. And so he did. 9 o'clock that morning, he phoned me. He said, Brad, listen, guess what? I said, what? He said, the newspapers are right. You're going to prison for 4 years. The Appellate division in Bloemfontein, 5 judges that sat, they said, no. From now on, we're going to take a stand against white-collar crime in South Africa. It'll always start with a prison sentence. And so I've got the judgment from those judges. This is what they said. Mr. Sadler, to you and your family, we're sorry for what you've been through. But we are taking a stand against white-collar crime. As you've paid the fine, we're going to refund you the fine. As you've done the 1,000 hours community service, put it down to experience, but you're going to prison for 4 years. Do you know that in that moment, this is what comes to your mind, God has dropped me. But that's not true, because that's not what His Word says. His Word says that He will never, ever leave us nor forsake us. There was a split second when that thought was coming, and Scripture says you must take these thoughts captive to Christ. I was like, but that's not God's character. Somehow God is going to use this to glorify His name. So I had 3 days. I had 3 days to get my life together. Let me tell you, that's impossible. And I had to go to prison. All the friends were visiting. We were running a home group. And we're like, what's God doing? I was like, I don't know, but this I do know. It's going to work out for His glory. I don't know how it's going to work, but I know He's going to do it. We just trying to get our lives kind of a semblance of order. Why I was going to go to prison for 4 years. A whole lot of friends came around and said, Brad, listen, these are the kind of things you've got to take to prison. I wanted to ask him, how do you know? But that would be embarrassing. But I had these bags full of my survival kit for prison. Blankets, sheets, pillows, jerseys, books, pens, papers. Some guy said, take Tupperware. Now, it's not an advert for Tupperware. He just said, take Tupperware. And I'll never forget the day my attorney arrived and the investigating officer to take me off to Westville Prison. Saying goodbye to my wife and my 2 kids. They were 12 and 8 years old at the time. And Heidi, my youngest, just wouldn't let me go. She grabbed onto my leg and she was just holding on. She said, Dad, why is the policeman here to take you away? I said, Heidi, remember, I told you what I'd done. I'd shared it with my family. We had been open with my girls. This is what had happened. These are the consequences. I said, Heidi, you remember? She said, Dad, did you forget to pay the fine? I said, no, I paid the fine. She said, did you miss some of the hours at hospice? We took you every Saturday. I said, Heidi, I did all the hours. She said, then why is the policeman here to take you away from me? I said, Heidi, you remember, there's some consequences to what I've done. I've got to go to prison for 4 years. She was so afraid that she would never see me again. And then I said to her, Heidi, God will take care of me inside the prison. It's a promise in the Bible. Isaiah 49, 15 and 16. I will not forget you. You know, sometimes we go into a dark place. We think, oh, the Lord will forget me for a while until I come out of the dark place. That's not true. I will not forget you. See, I've engraved you in the palm of my hands. I've engraved you in the palm of my hands. God will never forget you, no matter where you go, no matter where you are. And so I went off to the prison, arrived there with my bags, and we got to the door, massive gates. There was a warder there. He says, what do you guys want? My attorney said, this is Brad Sadler. He's come to start a 4-year prison sentence. He looked on his little clipboard. He said, you know what, I don't have his name. Can you go away and come back tomorrow? I had these bags. I threw them on the ground. I said, hey, let me in now. His eyes went this big. Who wants to come into prison? People are breaking out. I said, let me in. I'm coming in. You know, he's like, oh, okay, calm down. Eventually, 3 hours later, they let me in. A little admin hiccup, but they let me in. Now, Westville Prison is a modern prison. It's 5 prisons inside Westville Prison. And I was in the medium prison because my sentence was under 10 years. I arrived there with my bags. It's awesome. You go inside the main entrance, downlighting, there's juice and biscuits. No, there's nothing. Just a yellow line. Don't cross. There I was standing with my bags. No one around. Eventually, a warder comes up. He says, what's that? I said, it's my staff. He said, what staff? I said, it's my staff for prison. He said, we will give you everything you need. Give me those bags. I gave him the bags. He unzipped them. He said, oh, hang on. How long's your sentence? I said, 4 years. He says, you're going to get bored. Take these books. He says, look, we've run out of jackets and jerseys. Take the tracksuit. He says, oh, I said, you got Tupperware. We've run out of plates and bowls and cups. Take the Tupperware. It's going to help you. He said, all the rest of the stuff I'm going to lock away. 4 years' time, come get it back from me. See? I said, you're right. So I went into this holding cell, a whole lot of other guys that were coming into the prison that day. Luckily, I had the Tupperware bowl because they had no other bowls and plates. I would get lunch in my hands. Held up my Tupperware bowl, filled it up. I said, thank you so much. Looked at my bowl. I said, oh, my goodness. So the guy next to me says, Brad, what's wrong? I said, that guy vomited in my bowl. He said, are you not hungry? I said, not now. But you know, as humans, we're extremely adaptable. Did you know that? I was eating the food, no problem the next day, it's fine. And so they put me in a communal cell. It's a cell designed for 20 men. 69 of us in that particular cell. There was no bed for me. I went on the bed list. There on the wall is a sheet of paper. As you're the new guy in, you write your name on the bottom. And as guys are released, die, or escape, so you go up the list. I'd been there for 6 weeks, and they just pulled me out of the breakfast line. And one day they said, get your stuff, you're going. I knew it wasn't going home. I said, going where? They said, you're going to another prison. We're renovating Westville Prison, Joburg or Cape Town. I said, but my family live 15 minutes away. I'll never see them. He said, I don't care. Get your stuff, you're going. So eventually they give us our bags back. Off we get into a truck. We didn't know where we were going. Again, as I said, very efficient. Truck for 10 men, 40 of us inside with our bags. We start traveling. One guy manages to peep through the top of the truck. He realizes where we're going. He says, guys, I've been here before. We're going to Seefontein. We said, where's that? He said, no, it's just outside Maritzburg. Turned out to be about an hour and a half from our home. He said, it's a really great prison. It's a farm prison. I said, farm prison? He said, yes. They grow their own vegetables. I said, are we going to eat those vegetables? He said, yes. No more rotten cabbage that we were getting at Westville. It's going to be awesome. He said, yeah, and they got cattle. I said, cattle? You mean meat? He said, yes, we're going to get meat. Because at Westville we got stuff, used to float. It wasn't meat. I don't know what it was, but it just floated. I was like, meat is going to be awesome. And he said, the gangs are underground inside the prison. Now, in the prison, the warders lock you up. The gangs run the inside of the prison. They're called the number because they all got a number, so it makes sense. 28s, 26s, the ones that all got these numbers. There's a common thread through all the gangs. They are violent. If you want to join a gang, you stab somebody in the dining hall. I don't know why the dining hall, not good for appetite, but you stab them in the dining hall and they have to bleed all over the floor. Now, you can't stab another gang member because that gang will kill you. So you pick on people that are not in a gang. They're called targets. Now, I didn't see the necessity to join a gang. I was quite happy on my own. I suppose a gang of one. But I automatically became a target. Now, the gangs are in a military structure. Generals, lieutenants, soldiers. If you want to go up the ranks, you do one of two things. You kill a warder or you kill an inmate with profile. An inmate with profile, someone that's been a little infamous, been in the newspaper. The day I walked into prison, that article of me going to prison was pasted on the wall in the prison with my photograph. I suddenly became an inmate with profile. It was a dangerous place. So targets walk around groups of 10 or more because then the gangs won't interfere with you. So we arrive at Seefontein, middle of the night, freezing cold. We get out of the truck and the warders are there. They say, welcome to Seefontein. We've got no uniforms, we've got no jerseys, no jackets, no sheets, no pillows, no blankets. We've got no plates, no bowls. We have cells. Welcome to Seefontein. You can keep your bags. Do you know that in those bags was everything I needed for Seefontein? Sometimes we'll complain, oh Lord, look at, you're not providing for me. But the Lord's always providing for us. Sometimes we just don't see the when. But He is providing. Everything I needed for Seefontein was in those bags. It wasn't for Westville. It was for Seefontein. And so we got into the cell. We had a lot more room in the cell. There's only 65 of us in the 20-man cell. And there was a bed. I had this bed, a guy on the top bed. I said, hi, my name's Brad Sadler, fraud, no cash. He said, no, Brad, I understand. He said, you see that guy over there? I said, yeah. He said, stay away from him. I said, why? He said, well, he's got an anger problem. I said, big deal. He said, no, he lost in a card game. He killed the guy with his bare hands. I said, thanks for telling me. He said, you see this guy just there? I said, yes. He said, well, he killed 2 people. Then he cut them into pieces and buried the pieces in his garden. I said, thank you for telling me. When you go into prison, don't go, okay, white-collar crime. Why don't you just go to the left? Murderers, rapists, and hijackers, you go to the right. You're all in the same cell. You've got to get on well with the guys in your cell. Next morning, breakfast, off I go. You get 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch. If you do not like porridge, you're only getting 1 meal a day because every morning you get porridge for breakfast. I love porridge. Went to breakfast, held up my Tupperware bowl. My friend was right. That Tupperware bowl was extremely useful. I bathed out of it twice a day and I ate out of it twice a day. It was awesome. There it was, full with porridge, went and sat down. And I put milk and sugar in. As I looked in my bowl, I saw these little things wriggling in my bowl. There was worms in my porridge. So I just flicked the worms out the way and ate the rest of my porridge. This is a lesson for you and me. The small things in life will prevent you from getting all that wonderful other stuff in life. Stop worrying about the small things. Sometimes, I can't do these little things in my life. Hey, you flick them out the way, the rest is porridge. You got to see the big picture in God. After breakfast, I decided, you know what? I cannot lie on my bed for 4 years and watch TV. Most of the inmates do. I've got to do something with my life. So that education department, off I went to the education department, there was a warder there. I said, hi, my name's Brad Sadler. I'd like to help. He said, do what? I said, I'd like to teach. He said, what can you teach? I said, I can teach economics and business science and accounting. He said, that's great. We got guys doing a BCom and they're struggling a little bit. That'll be so great. Thank you so much. He said, but why are you here? I said, no, I'm here for fraud. He said, woo, you're not doing accounting, business science, and economics. You need to teach something else. For that 4 years during my trial, I couldn't get work, so we'd started a computer business that had become quite successful. And so I said to him, can I teach the inmates to assemble and repair computers? He said, that'll be great. And so I sat on my bed for a week. I wrote this course out. They sent it to the head office, came back, said, yeah, you can teach the inmates the skill. So I phoned my wife and my friends. I said, guys, bring every broken computer you can find. And I said to the warder, can I teach gang members and non-gang members? He said, no. Because where there's a gang member and a non-gang member, someone's going to get hurt, possibly die. So you're not going to do that. And I said to him, I believe everyone deserves a second chance. Sometimes third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth. But everyone deserves another chance. I said, please, can I train gang members and non-gang members? He wouldn't allow me. Till eventually I harassed him so much. He said, okay, you can. But if anyone gets hurt, you personally are going to bear that responsibility. I said, that's okay. I'd really felt God say to me that I need to do this. And I do believe this. Where God speaks, He provides a way. And so I began this course, gang members and non-gang members. And we had 2 rules. Every time we got into this classroom, before we started, we said, rule number 1, you want to change your life, dedicate yourself to study. Rule number 2, if you feel the urge to stab, you do that outside. Every time we said this, no one was ever stabbed in my classroom. 2 weeks later, I'm in the courtyard after breakfast, just before I go up to the lectures. And the general of the one gang came and stood next to me, and I didn't see him. Now, I'm a target, he's a general. He should be raping me, assaulting me, stabbing me, selling me drugs, or all that at the same time. He did not become a general through the democratic process. He got there by killing people. He was massive, scars and tattoos all over his body. I was standing there, he says, Brad, how are you? I said, I'm fine. He said, I want to do you a favor. I said, what favor is that? He said, I want to thank you for what you're doing for the gangs inside this prison. He said, no one has ever done that before. And so I want to thank you. So I said, and? He says, I've given my word. I said, what word? He said, this morning, 1,600 men in this prison were all told, if anyone just touches you, I personally am going to kill them. I said, oh, la, 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 la. I'm here for fraud, not accomplice to murder. I need you. Go back. Tell them, target, carry on, all as usual. He said, I gave my word. And he walked off. I was like, what? Now, before I went into prison, those 3 days, the pastor of our church came. And he started praying with me. And he said, Brad, the Lord has given me a word for you. You're going to be a lighthouse inside the prison. I said, prison? Lighthouse? He said, yes. I said, okay. That afternoon, after that general had come to see me, that afternoon, another inmate comes. He says, Brad, the gang's giving you a name. I said, oh, big deal. He said, you don't understand. They're calling you the White Mountain. I said, the what? He said, they're calling you the White Mountain. It's a term of respect the gangs give to other gang members. What I can't understand, you're not in the gang and you've never killed anybody. Then that word that pastor had given me had just come back. I remembered it. You'll be a lighthouse inside the prison. This is what I want to say to you this morning. No matter where you are, You can be in the darkest place you think possible. When you submit yourself to God, you become like a light. We are like light in the darkness if we'll submit to the things of God in our lives. Do you know, I helped over 450 inmates inside that prison in the time that I was there. I used to get phone calls. I don't know how they used to get my number. When I was released, I'd get phone calls. Brad, you don't know me? Did your course? It's changed my life. You know, the one day, I was in a mug and bean in Westville. I'd been released. There's this guy, taps me on the shoulder, and I look, I've got the fright in my life. This was one of the guys that did my course. He was in prison because he loved to stab people. He just stabbed everybody. Did my course. He taps me on the shoulder. It's like, oh! He said, this is his first words out of his mouth. Brad, I've stopped stabbing people. Oh! He says, your course changed my life. This is what I want to say to you this morning. No matter where you are, do what you can with what you've got. Because that's what God does. He gifts every single one of us. Oh, wait, I've got to wait till this is over. Then I can do this in the kingdom. No, in the midst of where you are, God can still use you. In the midst of the darkest place that I was in my life, when we allow ourselves, we open ourselves to God, He can use us in that place. Eventually, they gave me my own cell. And so that day I got a few of my things. I walked into the cell. It was a single cell. As I walked in, I got the fright in my life. There were two other guys in the cell. They said, look, prison's a little overcrowded. We 3 up in a single cell. Now, if you want to know how squashy it was, this is what you must just imagine. A single cell is this big. Lie in your bath. It's a half longer, 2 single doors wide. That's a single cell. In it, bed, toilet, wash hand basin. With 3 of us in, it's a triple bunk. If one guy's brushing his teeth, one guy's got to sit on the toilet, and one guy on the bed, or both on the bed. It's just not enough room inside. And you're locked up from 3 in the afternoon to 7 the next morning. So you've got to be on really good terms with the rest of the guys in your cell. So I walked in. I was like, oh, okay. I said, hi, my name's Brad Sadler. Fraud, no cash. They said, no, Brad, we understand. I said, oh, what did you guys do? They said, no, we are professional bank robbers. We used to rob banks with machine guns. I said, we've got something in common, banks. That's awesome. He said, yeah, we don't do drugs. I said, that's great. And one guy had his arm on the bed like this, and we were talking, and he had a tattoo with a slight scar over his arm. I said to him, but what happened there? He said, Brad, it's a long story. I said, I've got time. He said, well, before I came to prison, I had this girlfriend. Oh, man, she was so cute. And so I had this tattoo with her name underneath. I said, great. What happened to your arm? He said, I robbed some banks. I got caught, got given 10 years. He said, the day I came into prison, she stopped being my girlfriend. Can you believe that? I said, imagine that. So I said, what did you do? He said, well, if she's not my girlfriend, I want her name off. Can't have her name on my arm. She's not my girlfriend. So I said, then what did you do? He says, well, I asked some of the guys, been here a long time, how can I get that tattoo off? I said, what did they tell you? He said, they said you can iron it off with a steam iron. I said, but what happened next? He said, yeah, they came, 4 of them. They held me down, they heated up the steam iron, and they ironed my tattoo. I said, your tattoo is still there. He said, I know. Afterwards, they said, we're just joking. Here's the lesson for you and me. Common sense, not that common. But here's an application in the church. People don't realize that Christ is here to set us free. People don't realize that in their darkest moment, Christ can bring the light. We don't realize. We need to tell people that. Eventually, I was released. I was released after serving 14 months in prison. The head of the prison, the judge that sentenced me, and the prosecutor that had prosecuted me all agreed, because I'd served 1/4 of my sentence, which you can do under 5 years, that I would be a model citizen in society and I could be released. I had very strict parole conditions. I couldn't leave my home before 6 in the morning, had to be home 6 o'clock at night, only if I was working. I could be out Saturdays 8 to 12 for shopping, Sundays 8 to 12 for church. The rest of the time I had to be at home. No more than 2 additional people in your home at any one time. No alcohol, no drugs, no parties for another 3 years. And that time I went and I started to get a job. A friend of mine offered me a job. And through all this, my prayer was, Lord, What now? I got a criminal record. You know, it's not easy to get a job with a criminal record. And I've been working for my friend for a while. And another friend had phoned. He said, Brad, listen, man, I wanted you to do me a favor. There's a conference in the Drakensberg. 400 auditors are meeting. I want you to come there and tell them your story about the corporate world and what happened, the decisions you made as the result you went to prison. I said, I'm not telling anyone I was in prison. He said, you must do it. He said, you've got this story. It's going to help people. I said, I'm not doing it. He said, speak to your wife. I said, don't bring my wife into it. I'm not speaking to her. And I put the phone down. So I went home that night, and my wife was in the kitchen. Hey, babes, how's it going? I sat there at the nook, talking. She said, how was your day? I said, no, it was fine. So-and-so phoned me, wants me to go and do this talk. All these auditors, can you believe it? She says this to me. Would you like what happened to you to happen to anybody else? I said, no. She said, then you don't have an option. You need to go and do that talk. I hate it when she's right, but she was right. So I phoned my friend the next morning. I said, Bud, how's it? I'll do the talk. He said, you spoke to your wife, didn't you? I said, be quiet. 2 months later, I went and I spoke at this conference. And I spoke to them about what I'd done, the decisions I'd made, and what the result was. And afterwards, we were having tea. All these guys came to me and said, Brad, hi, can we have your business card? I said, no, you don't understand. I don't have a business. I just did this for a friend of mine. They said, no, we believe you've got to speak to South Africa about this. I said, no. Then this guy comes to me, Christian auditor. He says, Brad, you don't know me. I'm an auditor. God has told me to help you. I said, do what? He said, to get this message into the corporate world. Because we're going to change people's lives. And so we started an organization called Pros and Ex-Cons. I kid you not. You can look it up on the internet. It's there. And so the Lord started opening doors into these massive South African companies, speaking to boards and management and the employees about the dangers of fraud and corruption and what it does to your life. And then it started getting more and more and more. Then I was praying. I was saying, oh, Lord, this is great. Can I just go like across the border, maybe Namibia, Zambia? Those doors started opening. I said, this is incredible. Then one day I got a call from the Attorney General of Lagos. He wanted me to come and speak there. I said, Lord, woo, not so far. Can we just pull it back a bit? Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. You know, when I was released from prison, a friend of mine said, Brad, I've got a guy, he comes to help guys adjust, out of prison. Would you like to see him? I said, yeah, okay. So I had coffee with him. He said, Brad, hi, I've dealt with cases like yours before, but yours is the biggest. And I want to just prepare you for what's coming. Your wife's going to divorce you and your children are going to hate you. I was glad he wasn't a motivational speaker. That's what I said to him. No, that's not true. Because Jesus is the center of our lives. I said, God's going to turn this around. And so I've traveled the world speaking into corporates, but the dangers of fraud and corruption and what it does to your lives. Do you know that when I go into these situations, I can't say the name of Jesus? Their policy is no religion. But I pray every single time, Lord, would you use me to speak to these men and women? Every single time I've spoken, I've been doing this since 2002. Every single time, at least one person has come up and said, you Christian, aren't you? I wonder if you would pray for me. See, God will take your worst circumstance, and if you will allow him, he'll turn it around. Do you know that I've even spoken at Parliament? I know it hasn't really worked, but I've been to Parliament. I'm going to end with this. These are real handcuffs. And I don't have the key. And if I don't get out of them, it's going to be very embarrassing flying Mango to Durban. You may be here this morning and you're feeling there's something that's just holding you back. Maybe you've never surrendered your life to Christ. You feel you're bound. Maybe you have surrendered your life to Christ. Been a Christian for a while. There's still something that's holding you back. Brad, there's just something binding me. I feel like there's some dark. I need to be released. And so we look for a key. And so the world will tell you, more money, success, new car, bigger house, swap this, change that. That's the key to being released. That's what the world will tell you. But I want to tell you there's another key. And sometimes it's not the key we think of. Now, when I was in prison, these guys did teach me something. And to answer your next question, I'm not showing you how to do it. But there is another key. And it's not the key the world will tell you is the key. It's the key I'm telling you is the key. It's Christ. When we allow Christ to come into our situation, He will set you free. Because that's what He said. I've come to set the captives free. And so if you have Christ, no matter what your situation, freedom will come.